The jungle was on fire, his squad was dead, and his comms were silent. Yet amid the smoke, a weak voice cried for help. When human soldier Oren Voss pulled a glowing alien girl from the wreckage, he didn't know she was a royal heir, or that saving her would make him a target for war. Hunted by her enemies and watched by her empire, he now stands before the stars, not as a soldier, but as a symbol of forbidden unity. And if he fails the ancient trial ahead, he won't just lose his life, he'll doom a galaxy. If you're new here, then please subscribe this channel and show thumbs up by liking the video. Now let's move to this wonderful story. The fire moved like a living thing, eating the jungle tree by tree. Black smoke twisted into the air, choking the sky in thick layers. The night glowed orange and red as sparks jumped from branch to branch. Beneath it all, a lone figure stumbled through the undergrowth, armor cracked, breathing heavy, eyes searching. Oren Voss had no team left. They were supposed to land quiet, gather intel, and leave within hours. But someone knew they were coming. Their drop zone was hit before their boots touched the ground. Missiles from hidden launchers. 3 ships gone in seconds. His squad tried to regroup. Half of them never even made it out of the fire. Now Oren was the last one moving, dragging his scorched boots across the jungle floor with nothing but a broken rifle, a dead comm, and ash in his mouth. He should have run. He should have buried himself under fallen trees, waited for extraction that would probably never come. But then he heard it. A voice. Soft. Broken. Almost swallowed by the roar of the flames. He froze, listening. It came again. This time clearer. Help. Please. Someone. It wasn't a voice he recognized. Not from his team. And it didn't sound like a human either. The accent was thick, the words slow and painful. Still, something in the way it trembled reached past his fear. Please. His heart beat faster. The enemy had used voice traps before. Recorded cries, fake calls, tricks to lure soldiers out into open fire. He knew better. But something about this one. It didn't feel like bait. It felt like a real person. Alone. Afraid. Dying. Oren pushed forward. Branches cracked under his weight. The jungle moaned as flames leapt through leaves. His body ached with every step, his shoulder bleeding from shrapnel. Yet he moved, pulled by something he didn't understand. The voice led him into a clearing. There, amid smoking rubble, lay the twisted remains of an alien skiff. The ship had crashed hard, its hull ripped open, flames licking at its sides. Oren stepped closer, coughing. The heat was unbearable, pressing against his skin like an invisible wall. And then he saw her. Pinned beneath part of the wreckage was a girl. No, not a girl. Not human. Her skin shimmered pale silver blue, dirt and blood smeared across her face. Her armor was elegant but torn, lined with gold thread that caught the firelight. Her leg was crushed beneath the debris and one arm hung limp at her side. But her eyes were open. They glowed faintly, wide and terrified. They locked onto Oren like she was seeing something impossible. Please, she whispered again, her voice nearly gone. He froze. Her markings, her clothing, everything about her screamed royalty, nobility, someone important. She wasn't just an alien. She was someone meant to be protected, someone whose death would echo across empires. Oren dropped his weapon. Don't move, he said gently. I've got you. He grabbed a thick piece of broken metal and wedged it under the beam. Sweat poured from his face. The wreck groaned as it shifted. She cried out in pain, her voice sharp but controlled. Still, she didn't scream again. She just stared at him, breathing hard, eyes full of something that almost looked like disbelief. With a final grunt, he pushed the beam aside and dropped to his knees beside her. Your leg's broken, he said, tearing a strip from his sleeve. You're bleeding bad. She didn't answer, only watched as he worked. His hands moved fast, tying the cloth around her side to slow the bleeding. She winced but didn't pull away. When he finally picked her up, she cried out, her fingers clutching at his chest plate. Hang on. he whispered. He ran. Fire followed them, trees collapsing behind like falling giants. Explosions cracked through the air. Maybe enemy drones, maybe the skiff's engine giving out. He didn't look back. After what felt like forever, he found a cave. Small, hidden. Its entrance covered in moss and broken stone. Oren slid inside, breath coming in sharp gasps. He laid her down on the cool floor and checked her again. She was conscious, but barely. "Who are you?" he asked. "Selena," she whispered. "Daughter of the veiled matron." His hands froze. He had just saved a royal heir. This wasn't just a survivor anymore. This was the one the enemy was hunting. And now, because he had helped her, they would hunt him too. He sat beside her, heart pounding. Outside, the jungle burned. Inside the cave, only the sound of her shallow breathing remained. He tore off more fabric, cleaned the blood from her face. When he was done, she reached out slowly, her fingers brushing his cheek. "You're human," she said. "Yeah," he replied with a tired smile. "Last time I checked, they told me humans were monsters." He gave a soft laugh. "They say that a lot." A moment passed, then a small beep came from her belt. Oren jumped, grabbing his knife. A round, scorched drone hovered up from the wreckage. It scanned both of them, blinked twice, then zipped into the air and disappeared into the smoke. "What was that?" he asked. "Royal recorder," she said weakly. "It saw you. It's sending signal. To the Empire." He sat, back breathing hard. This mission was supposed to be routine. Land Scout report. Instead, he had saved the heir to one of the most feared empires in this part of the galaxy. And now he was part of something far, far bigger. Outside, the firestorm still roared. But inside that quiet cave, two enemies breathed the same air. A human, soldier, an alien princess. And in that moment, neither of them was alone. The smoke had thinned by morning, but the sky was still gray with ash. Inside the mossy cave, Oren Voss sat with his back against the cold wall, his eyes fixed on the narrow entrance. He hadn't slept. He couldn't. Every sound outside, every crackling leaf or snapping twig, made his body tense. His rifle was gone, his knife dull, and the girl lying just a few feet away was the most dangerous person he had ever met. Not because she wanted to hurt him, but because she mattered. Selena, daughter of the veiled matron, heir to one of the largest star empires in the known galaxy. An empire known for its strength, its laws, and its unbroken bloodline. And now Oren had touched her, saved her, held her in his arms. That meant something. Something serious. He turned, his head slightly, and looked at her. Selena was still asleep, her silver-blue skin pale in the dim light. He had done what he could to stop the bleeding. Her leg was wrapped, her arm splinted with broken branches. But she still looked fragile, like a statue of light left out in the rain too long. Then she opened her eyes. For a moment, she stared at the ceiling, as if remembering where she was. Then her eyes met his. "You stayed?" she said quietly. "Yeah," Oren replied, rubbing his sore shoulder. Wasn't sure what else to do. She tried to sit up but winced. He moved to help, but she shook her head. "I can manage." He backed off, letting her rise slowly. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached for her belt. A small light blinked weakly on the side. "The recorder," she said. "It should have reached my people by now." "What happens when they get here?" he asked. Selena didn't answer right away. "Depends on who comes," she said finally. "Some will want to reward you, others will see you as a threat." "Great," Oren muttered. "I save a life and I still get shot." She smiled just a little. "You saved more than a life." Before he could ask what she meant, a low hum filled the air. It was soft at first, like a whisper of wind, but then it grew, deeper and stronger, vibrating through the ground beneath them. Oren stood quickly, eyes scanning the sky through cracks. In the cave wall, a ship, a big one. He stepped to the entrance, heart pounding. Through the smoke, he saw it descending, massive, round, and glowing like a silver moon. Its hull shimmered with strange patterns, alive with symbols that shifted as it landed. Long legs extended from its underside, settling gently into the scorched jungle floor. Trees bent and snapped under the pressure. Dozens of figures stepped out in perfect formation, tall, armored, glowing. They looked nothing like the fragile girl he had carried. These were warriors, trained, silent, and alert. Oren felt a chill slide down his spine. He reached for his knife, then stopped. Then, he wouldn't win this. Not against them. Instead, he stepped in front of Selena, blocking the cave entrance with his body. "Stay down," he said. "No," she replied. "They need to see me." She raised one weak arm. The guards saw her immediately. They stopped, their weapons still but ready. One figure stepped forward, taller than the rest, with gold lines running down the sides of his armor. His face was sharp, unreadable, and his eyes never left Oren. "Do not shoot," Selena said, clearly. "He saved me." The soldiers didn't move. The commander stepped closer, then slowly knelt beside Selena and placed 2 fingers on her forehead. "The matron is waiting," he said in their language. Then he turned to Oren and spoke in broken English. "You will come." "Come where?" Oren asked. "Home." A floating bed was brought out from the ship. They lifted Selena gently onto it. She said nothing, her eyes on Oren. He moved to follow, but several guards blocked his path. "No," said the commander. "You fly with honor." A new shape dropped from the sky. Not a ship, but something smaller. An orb, smooth and bright like glass filled with stars. A hatch opened, revealing a single seat. Oren looked at it, then at Selena. She gave him a small nod. He stepped inside. The orb lifted quickly, the jungle vanishing below. Smoke, fire, trees. It all fell away as the sky opened above him. Stars blinked into view like slow eyes waking from sleep. He had no idea where he was going. He was a soldier, not a hero, not a prince. But now the stars were calling him forward, and he could not look away. The journey through space was smooth and silent. No noise, no shaking. Time felt strange, like hours and minutes had no meaning anymore. Oren dozed once, only to wake with a jolt as light flooded the pod. He looked out and forgot to breathe. The world below was unlike anything he'd seen. Not like Earth, not like the ruined colonies. This place glowed with rivers of silver and cities that floated above crystal seas. Towers taller than mountains sparkled in the clouds, and ships moved between moons like birds crossing a sky that never ended. The orb landed in a quiet garden. Blue trees swayed in warm wind. Crystals sang in the air. Everything was alive, peaceful, and strange. Guards waited. They didn't chain him. They bowed. He blinked. "This way," said the commander. They walked through golden halls, past walls that moved with color and statues that breathed light. Every step felt heavy, not with fear, but with something more, like he was walking through history. Finally, they reached a vast chamber, and there at the center stood the veiled matron. Tall, graceful, eyes like deep water, skin like smooth stone wrapped in robes that shimmered with power. Behind her stood Selena, now dressed in flowing silver, a cane in one hand. Her face still showed pain, but her eyes were bright. The matron stepped forward. "You saved what is most dear to me," she said. Oren didn't speak. "You gave my daughter protection when others would have left her to die," she continued. He still said nothing. "For this," she said, "the Empire owes you." Selena stepped closer. "Mother," she said, "I want him to stay." The chamber went quiet. The matron looked from her daughter to the human. Then she nodded. "You are offered more than thanks," she said. "You are offered invitation." Oren's throat felt dry. The stars above shimmered. He had walked through fire. Now he stood in front of a throne, and the galaxy was waiting. The silence inside the great hall was sharp, like a blade held against the skin. Nobles lined the balconies above, dressed in shimmering robes, eyes glowing behind jeweled masks. None of them spoke, but their thoughts were loud, every glance filled with judgment. A human had entered their sacred city, walked their golden halls, and now stood where no outsider had ever been allowed. Oren Voss felt the weight of every stare. Beside him stood Silena, daughter of the veiled matron, dressed in ceremonial white with blue marks drawn across her face. Her arm touched his lightly, not for support but to remind him she stood with him no matter what happened next. At the front of the hall, the matron rose from her throne. Her voice, calm and deep, echoed across the chamber. "The one who saved. My daughter stands among us," she said. "He has been offered invitation, but tradition demands more." A murmur passed through the nobles. "Our laws are ancient," she continued, "and they speak clearly. None may walk the path of unity without facing the trial." She looked directly at Oren now. "Do you accept this test?" Oren didn't move at first. He felt the air press against his skin, thick with expectation. Then slowly he nodded. "Yes," he said quietly. A tall priest stepped forward. His robes shimmered like liquid stone. He raised a long staff, and the floor beneath them opened, revealing a path of glowing light. "Then let the trial begin," the priest said. Oren followed in silence. They walked through a narrow tunnel made of glass-like crystal. The walls shifted and changed, showing flashes of light, then shadow. Finally, the tunnel opened into a vast chamber, round and dark with no ceiling, only stars above, spinning slowly in the black. At the center stood a structure grown from the ground like a living tree of stone, smooth, tall, covered in runes. This was the Temple of Reflection, older than the Empire itself. The priest turned to Oren. "This place will show you what lies inside your soul," he said. "You cannot lie to it. You cannot hide from it." The large doors of the temple opened with a low, breath-like sound. Oren stepped inside alone. The light disappeared. Darkness swallowed him. He stood still, breathing slowly. The air was cold, dry. Then, a whisper. Not one voice. Many. Some male. Some female. Some human. Some alien. All speaking together. "Who are you?" He opened his mouth to answer, but no words came. A light sparked in front of him, and the darkness peeled away like smoke. Suddenly, he was not in the temple anymore. He was back on his first battlefield. Earth's last war. The sky was red. The streets burned. Screams echoed from broken buildings. He saw his old squad again. 7 of them, his friends, his family. They were laughing, then running, then falling. He saw them die again, one by one. "You left us," a voice said behind him. He turned and saw Marin, his closest friend, her uniform torn, blood on her face. "You survived," she said. "But we didn't." Tears welled in his eyes. "I didn't choose to leave you," he whispered. "I had no choice." "Why do you get to live?" she asked. "Because someone has to remember you," he said. The image burned away, and a new one took its place. A hospital. His sister, lying still on a thin bed, tubes in her arms, her breath shallow. The room was quiet except for the beep of a heart monitor. She had sold everything to send him off-world, to give him a future, and he had never come back to say goodbye. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice breaking. "I thought I had more time." He fell to his knees. The light faded. The temple showed him every regret, every failure, every fear. It tried to crush him with guilt. It tried to drown him in memory. But he stood again. His body hurt. His hands shook. But he stood. "I'm not perfect," he said into the dark. "I've made mistakes. I've failed. But I never stopped trying." A low hum filled the chamber. Something stepped forward. A guardian, tall as 3 men. Its body was made of black stone and glowing threads of energy. It had no eyes, no mouth. but it looked at him all the same. It moved fast. A blow struck Orin in the chest, sending him flying across the floor. Pain bloomed through his ribs. He gasped for breath. The Guardian charged again. He rolled, dodged, slammed his shoulder into the creature's leg. It barely moved. Another hit. He fell hard, blood in his mouth. He had no weapon, no armor, just his will. The Guardian raised its arm for the final blow, and Orin dropped to his knees. "I'm not here to fight you," he said. The Guardian froze. "I'm not here to prove I'm stronger," he said. "I'm here because someone believed in me. Not for power, not for pride, just for trust." The light inside the Guardian shifted. "I'm not a hero," he said. "I've killed, I've lost people, but I never turned away from someone who needed help." The Guardian lowered its arm, then slowly it knelt. Blue light poured from the walls, soft and warm. Orin's wounds vanished. The air grew calm, and the voice returned. "You may pass." The darkness faded. Orin stood once more outside the temple. The priest waited, his face unreadable. Silena stood nearby, hope burning in her eyes. "He is worthy," the priest said. Gasps echoed across the courtyard. Some nobles looked away. Others bowed their heads in quiet respect. The matron raised one hand. "Prepare the ceremony," she said. But in the far shadows of the gathering, a tall figure slipped away unseen. A whisper of danger still lingered in the air. The trial had ended, but the true test had only just begun. The twin suns hung low over the capital city of Elvantra, painting the sky with shades of gold and crimson. High above the skyline, the towers of the Star Palace shimmered with quiet power. The war was over. The fires had cooled. But the people had not forgotten. They watched now, not as soldiers or citizens, but as witnesses to something no empire had seen in 10,000 years. Inside the grand atrium, beneath a dome made of living crystal, Orin Voss stood in silence. His uniform was new, made from both human fabric and alien light thread. It fit him well, but he still felt like a stranger wearing it. His hands were steady, but his mind was full of noise. He was not a prince, not a noble, just a man who had run into fire to save a stranger. And now that stranger stood beside him. Silena, daughter of the veiled matron, wore robes that flowed like water. Her silver blue skin glowed faintly in the sunlight streaming through the crystal. Above, her face was calm, but her eyes betrayed the truth. She was nervous. Like him. Because this moment wasn't just about ceremony. It was about change, about unity, and about trust. "They're watching," Orin whispered. "Let them," she replied. The priestess stepped forward. She held a thin blade, carved from a single shard of celestial stone. Its edge shimmered with colors no human eye could fully name. Her voice was soft but clear. "Do you, Orin Voss of Earth, accept this bond?" she asked. "Not as power, not as title, but as unity between worlds?" Orin looked at Silena. He saw everything he had faced in her eyes: fire, fear, courage, and hope. "Yes," he said. "I accept." Gasps rippled through the crowd above. Some nobles turned their heads. Others leaned forward, drawn in by the weight of the moment. The priestess turned to Silena. "Do you, Silena of the High Blood, accept this one into your line in life?" She did not hesitate. "I do." The priestess raised the blade. Then, "By this right, let your blood speak." She took Orin's hand and pressed the blade lightly against his palm. It cut clean. A single drop of red blood welled up. Then she did the same to Silena. When their hands touched, the blood mingled, red and silver, forming a small spark of light between them. The crystal dome above them pulsed once, a slow wave of color sweeping across it, and the bond was sealed. A moment of stillness followed. Then, without warning, a deep rumble shook the floor. The doors of the atrium burst open. Smoke and fire rushed. In-shouts filled the air. Soldiers in black and red armor stormed the chamber, weapons raised. Panic spread across the balconies as nobles scrambled for cover. Guards rushed to protect the Empress, forming a wall of bodies around her throne. Down! Orin shouted, pulling Selena behind a marble pillar as plasma bolts tore through the air. He had no rifle, no armor, just his instincts and his will. He grabbed a fallen banner pole and broke it into a spear. The first attacker reached him. Orin struck, fast, low, and brutal. The spear drove through armor with a sickening crack. The soldier collapsed and Orin moved to the next. This wasn't a protest. This was an assassination. A coup. They're aiming for my mother. Selena cried, gripping a small pulse dagger she'd hidden beneath her robe. She threw it to Orin. He caught it just in time to block another strike. They fought back to back. Around them, chaos. The Empress had disappeared behind her guards, but the enemy was closing fast. Then Orin saw him. On the far edge of the hall, standing tall and untouched, was a figure in silver and black. Lord Karen, once a high noble, now a traitor. Their eyes met. And in that moment, Orin understood. This had always been coming. Not just because of him, but because change had arrived, and some would do anything to stop it. Karen turned and walked away as his soldiers pressed forward. But they didn't reach the throne. Not that day. Orin and Selena held the line. When the last attacker fell, the chamber was silent again, filled only with smoke and broken stone. Orin dropped the dagger. Blood covered his hands, his tunic, even his face. But he was alive. Selena moved beside him, bruised but breathing. The Empress returned to the floor, her expression like stone. "This bond ceremony is complete," she said to those who remained. "And it will not be undone." Then she looked at Orin. "You are no longer just a guest," she said. "You are part of this house." Orin, still breathing hard, whispered back, "Then let me protect it." Days passed, then weeks. The capital began to heal. Damaged towers were rebuilt. The streets grew quiet, but nothing was the same. In the early light of a new day, Orin stood on the royal balcony, dressed not in ceremonial robes, but in new armor. Light, strong, made for movement. Built by both human hands and alien craft. It felt right. Beside him stood Selena. She wore no crown, just a single band of silver at her wrist. Sign of unity. A symbol of choice. Before them, the Empire waited. Not just this world, but thousands more. Connected by light, by law, and now, by hope. The oath had changed everything, and it was only the beginning. In the gardens behind them, a soft voice called out. "Your Highness, the child is awake." Selena smiled. Orin followed her through the quiet halls, past guards who now bowed without hesitation, through doors carved with ancient stories. In the center of the room stood a crib made of glass and wood, humming softly, with warmth. Inside, wrapped in a blanket of woven light, lay a child. Small, peaceful. Her skin shimmered gold and silver. When her eyes opened, they held the stars. Selena reached for Orin's hand. "She will change everything," she whispered. Orin nodded. "Then let's teach her how." Outside, the twin suns rose higher, and in their light the future began.